Welcome back to Stories Her Heart Holds. Today's story is about a family, a beach house, and the moment I realized I might have lost both. I had always loved that beach house, not just for its whitewashed walls, the faint smell of salt carried in by the ocean breeze, or the way the sun would dance across the living room floor in the mornings. No, it was more than that. It held memories, my children growing up, their laughter echoing in the hallways, summers spent with sand between our toes. My late husband Ernest and I sharing quiet evenings watching the waves roll in. That house wasn't just wood and nails. It was our life, frozen in a sunlit frame. I remember that morning like it was yesterday. I had made my usual cup of coffee, poured it into my favorite mug with the chipped handle, and sat on the porch, watching the gulls skimming over the water. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. There was nothing in the world to hint at the storm about to hit. Then my phone rang. It was my daughter, her voice calm, almost too calm. "Mom," she said softly, "we sold the beach house." At first I laughed. Surely she was joking. I mean, selling the house without even asking me? It was absurd. "You what?" I asked, coffee nearly spilling from my trembling hands. "It's done," she said. I thought it was time. I sat there stunned. My hands gripped the edge of the porch railing. My mind raced. How could she do this? How could she decide something so permanent, something so sacred, without even letting me speak? Ernest had always warned me about this. "Deepa," he'd said, "you know, sometimes your own children don't see the world the way you do. They see opportunity. They see numbers, not memories." I never imagined it would be my own daughter, my little Sophie, who would turn our memories into numbers. But the tone in her voice, it was calm, detached, like she had rehearsed this moment for weeks. That calmness burned me more than anger ever could. I spent the rest of the morning wandering the house. Each room echoed with reminders of the past, the sandcastle photos on the mantel, Ernest's old fishing rods in the corner, the faded curtains that smelled faintly of sunscreen and salt water. My heart ached. I called my son James, hoping he would understand. "Mom," he said after the third ring, "Sophie thought it was the best decision. The market's hot, and she got a good price. I didn't care about the price. I didn't care about the market. I cared about the memories, about the years I'd poured into that home." "You didn't even ask me," I cried. "It's just business, Mom," he said, almost brushing off my grief like dust from a shelf. "You're holding on to something that doesn't matter anymore." "Doesn't matter?" I wanted to scream. "Doesn't matter?" Those words cut deeper than any financial loss. By the afternoon, I was pacing the living room, my mind spinning through memories like a carousel. I remembered the first time Ernest and I saw the house. He had been so proud, pointing out the dunes, the way the sunlight hit the bay at dawn. "This is where we'll grow old," he'd said. And we had truly lived here. I remembered teaching Sophie to swim in that shallow bay, holding her tiny hands, feeling her trust and fear mix into one perfect moment. I remembered James catching his first fish from the dock, screaming so loud that the neighbors came out to see what was happening. Each memory wrapped itself around my chest, a physical weight, heavier than any sadness I'd ever known. And now, someone had decided it was all disposable. I tried calling Sophie again, hoping for an explanation, but she didn't answer. I left a message, but I didn't expect a reply. Her calmness had always been her shield. I knew it. She could say the most devastating things with a voice so even, so gentle that you almost believed it wasn't meant to hurt. But I knew better. That calmness was deliberate. It was power wrapped in silence. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the house being shown to strangers, my precious memories being shuffled around like furniture in a showroom. My chest felt tight, my hands clammy. Every hour I lay awake, my mind kept returning to that word Sophie had used. Done. Done. It wasn't just the sale. It was the finality of it. They had turned my past into a transaction, my family into strangers. And I knew deep down that I had to fight. Not just for the house, but for the memories, for Ernest, for the years that couldn't be bought or sold. The next morning, I began making calls. Lawyers, estate agents, anyone who might give me a sliver of hope. But the calm, precise way Sophie had orchestrated the sale left me worried. She had covered her tracks well. And as I started digging, I began to notice other things. Little details that didn't make sense. Bank statements missing. Signatures I didn't remember signing. Something was wrong, and that's when the fear started creeping in. Not fear for the house, fear for what my own daughter was capable of. I poured another cup of coffee and stared out at the water, the sky streaked with gold. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. It was from an unknown number. You're too late. The house isn't yours anymore. And just like that, the calm morning I had cherished was gone. The storm had arrived. Welcome back to Stories Her Heart Holds. If you thought the first part was shocking, wait until you hear what happened when I decided to dig deeper. The text from the unknown number had shaken me more than anything. I sat on the porch again, the salty wind brushing against my face, staring at the horizon as if it could somehow give me answers. Too late. The house isn't yours anymore. Those words replayed in my mind like a cruel chant. I tried to imagine who could have sent it. But the number was masked, the message delivered with calculated precision. Whoever did this wanted me to feel powerless. I took a deep breath and reminded myself, I wasn't powerless. Not yet. First, I needed details. Who had signed the papers? When? How could Sophie have moved so quickly without me noticing anything? I opened the drawer where Ernest had kept all the house documents. The faded folder marked Beach House Important. Flipping through it, my hands trembled, not from age, but from a cocktail of anger and disbelief. The deed was gone. Every document I expected to find, every signed agreement, had been replaced with photocopies I didn't recognize. Someone had meticulously erased my ability to claim the house. I tried calling Sophie again, holding on to hope that she might answer and explain, or at least show a hint of remorse. But as usual, her calm, even voice was nowhere to be heard. Instead, I got voicemail. Her calmness infuriated me more than any shout ever could. She always had this ability to make everything seem rational, justified, almost kind. But I knew better. There was nothing kind in selling a mother's memories without even a conversation. I decided to call James. Maybe he could help me make sense of this. James, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Do you know anything about who finalized the sale? Any names? Documents? Lawyers? Mom, he said carefully, as if speaking to a nervous child. I think you need to calm down. Sophie handled everything. She's got the house sold, the money's in the account. It's done. Done? I echoed, my throat tight. You mean stolen? He hesitated. Mom, it's complicated. Maybe there's nothing you can do. That word again. Complicated. Complicated is what people say when they want you to give up. But I wasn't ready to give up. Not this time. That afternoon, I drove to the local law office. I needed professional help, someone who could dig into the papers and tell me if there was a chance to reverse this. The receptionist, a young woman with a polite smile, led me to Mr. Holloway's office. He was an older man, kind-eyed but sharp, with a reputation for handling difficult estate cases. I explained everything, the sudden sale, Sophie's calm delivery, the missing documents, and the strange text message. He listened, nodding slowly, letting me finish without interruption. Mrs. Thompson, he said finally, leaning back in his chair. Cases like this, they're tricky. But there are ways to investigate. You have to start by documenting everything. Emails, texts, bank statements, any paper trail that connects your daughter or anyone else to the sale. I nodded, trying to absorb the legal jargon without feeling completely defeated. Can you find out who sent the text? I asked, my voice trembling. He frowned. Possibly. We'll need to trace it through the carrier. But someone might have been careful. These things can be anonymous. Whoever did this wants to intimidate you. Intimidate me? I felt something dark stir inside me, a mix of fear and determination. They weren't going to intimidate me. Not now. Not after everything. When I got home, I started digging through everything Sophie might have touched. Her calmness had made me underestimate her before, but now, every detail mattered. I looked through bank statements, emails, receipts. Something felt off, and then I saw it. A small transfer that didn't match any explanation. A wire from an unknown entity, under a name I didn't recognize, deposited right around the time Sophie finalized the sale. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about selling the house, it was bigger than I imagined. Someone else was involved. I remembered Ernest's old saying, "There's always someone pulling strings behind the curtain. You just have to see who's holding the thread." That night, I sat on the porch again, notebook in hand, trying to map out the situation. I wrote down every transaction, every conversation, every suspicious email. The pattern was emerging. Someone had orchestrated this quietly, skillfully. Sophie had sold the house, but she wasn't acting alone. And then the thought hit me like a punch to the chest. What if this wasn't just about money? What if my own children had been manipulated into doing something terrible? My mind raced, spinning through worst-case scenarios. But I couldn't panic. I had to stay calm. That calmness, the one Sophie had wielded like a weapon, had to be matched by me now. The next morning, I received another text. This time, it wasn't anonymous. It was Sophie. "Mom, it's done. I'm sorry you feel hurt, but this is for the best. Please understand." I stared at it for a long moment, my fingers gripping the phone. I could almost hear her voice, calm, even, like nothing had changed. And yet, everything had changed. I realized then that this wouldn't be resolved by anger alone. I needed proof, evidence, a way to show that selling the house wasn't just a financial decision. It was a betrayal. And I needed to act before the trail went completely cold. So I started calling people, lawyers, estate agents, and anyone who had been involved in real estate transactions in our town. I asked questions carefully, watching reactions, noting anything that seemed off. Slowly, a web began to form. The more I uncovered, the more I realized. Sophie's calmness wasn't just personality, it was strategy. She had known exactly what she was doing, step by step, to ensure I had no say. It wasn't just my house. It was control, and I couldn't let it go. That evening, a letter arrived in the mail. No stamp, no return address, just a single sheet of paper with a note in familiar handwriting. "Mom, they're watching you. Be careful who you trust." And for the first time, I knew this was bigger than family conflict. Someone was manipulating my children, and if I wasn't careful, I might lose more than a house. Welcome back to Stories Her Heart Holds. If you thought things were tense before, brace yourself. This is where the calm hides the storm. The letter that arrived that evening haunted me. "They're watching you. Be careful who you trust." Those words wrapped around my chest like ice. I sat at the kitchen table staring at it for what felt like hours. Who were they? And why would someone go to such lengths to scare me? I thought about Sophie. Her calm demeanor. The way she had sold the house without a word, like she was delivering bad news about the weather instead of taking away a part of my life. I realized then that calmness can be more terrifying than anger. It can hide calculation, strategy, and control. I needed answers. And to get them, I had to start digging where no one expected me to look. The first step was retracing Sophie's actions. I reviewed emails and phone calls, cross-checking dates and contacts. At first, it seemed like a simple sale. Sophie had signed the paperwork, deposited the funds, transferred ownership. But the more I examined it, the more inconsistencies I found. Bank records didn't match the sale exactly. Some money had gone into accounts I didn't recognize. And certain emails, one supposedly from the real estate agent, had odd phrasing, almost too polite, too scripted. My suspicion grew. Sophie hadn't done this alone. I called Mr. Holloway, the lawyer I met in Part 2, and shared my findings. "Mrs. Thompson," he said cautiously, "reviewing the documents, this isn't just a family disagreement anymore. This looks like a coordinated effort. Someone knew exactly how to move the money, cover tracks, and leave you without recourse." The thought hit me like a thunderclap. My daughter hadn't simply sold the house. She had been guided, manipulated, possibly by someone with a lot more experience than her. I couldn't ignore Sophie, though. I needed to confront her, to gauge her reaction, and maybe find a crack in that calm exterior. I decided to go to her apartment unannounced, hoping to catch a flicker of honesty. When I arrived, Sophie answered the door like nothing was wrong. Her hair was neatly tied back, her sweater soft and warm, her expression gentle. "Mom," she said, calm as ever. "I didn't expect you." I took a deep breath. "Sophie, we need to talk. About the house." She tilted her head slightly, a faint smile curling at her lips. "I thought we already did." "No," I said firmly. "Not really. You sold it, and you didn't even try to explain why. And now, I'm starting to see that it wasn't just your idea." Her eyes didn't waver. That calmness, it infuriated me. "Mom, I did what had to be done. You need to understand this was practical, safe. You're getting emotional about something that's already done." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Safe? You're talking about my memories. Our family. The house Ernest and I built with our hands. How can you call that safe?" For a moment there was silence. I thought maybe I had finally made her flinch. But then she shook her head gently. "Mom, I'm calm because I have to be. Anger doesn't solve anything. Let's just move forward." I felt a wave of despair. Sophie had become someone I barely recognized. Or maybe, I realized with a shiver, she had been this way all along, only waiting for the right moment to reveal it. I left her apartment with a heavy heart. On the drive home, my mind kept replaying her words, her calm smile. But deep down, I knew calmness could be weaponized. And I needed proof. Proof that someone else was behind this. Proof that the sale wasn't simply a calculated family decision. The next morning, I got a call from an unexpected source, a private investigator named Lila, someone a friend of Ernest's had recommended years ago. She had experience uncovering fraud, deceit, and hidden dealings. I explained the situation, leaving out nothing: the anonymous texts, Sophie's calm demeanor, the missing documents, the suspicious wire transfers. "I'll take a look," Lila said. "But I need time. Whoever orchestrated this is smart. We have to be smarter." That was all I needed to hear. I wasn't alone. While Lila started digging, I returned to the beach house. Well, the empty property now under someone else's ownership. Standing in the sand, looking at the fading outline of our home, I felt a strange mix of sadness and resolve. Each footprint I left behind was a reminder of everything I had loved there, everything stolen. Then, I noticed something odd. A small envelope tucked under a board on the porch. It was addressed to me in Ernest's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a note, simple but clear. "Deepa, if anything happens to the house, follow the receipts. Follow the trail. Someone's trying to control what we built. Don't let them succeed." Ernest had left me a breadcrumb trail, knowing I would need guidance even after he was gone. My heart ached, but a spark ignited inside me. I wasn't done yet. I called Lila to share the discovery. Her voice on the line was steady but urgent. "This is exactly the kind of lead we need," she said. Ernest was smart. He knew someone might try to manipulate your family. Now we have a trail to follow. I'll start pulling banking records, contracts, and communications immediately. Whoever is behind this will slip up eventually. And slip up they would. I had been calm too, in my own way. Not the polished, emotionless calm of Sophie, but the simmering, determined calm of someone who refuses to lose. Later that night, as I reviewed some old family albums, I got another text, this time not from an unknown number, not from Sophie, but from someone completely unexpected. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." My hands shook as I set the phone down. Someone didn't just want me to stop, they wanted me scared, but fear wouldn't stop me. I had come too far. The calm I would wield now wasn't denial. It was strategy, and I was ready to use it. Welcome back to Stories Her Heart Holds. The calm we saw before was only the surface. Now the truth is starting to shake the foundations. The warning text had rattled me, but I refused to be intimidated. Whoever thought fear could stop me clearly didn't know my husband, or me. I poured a cup of coffee, sat by the window, and tried to map out my next steps. Lila, the investigator, had promised to start pulling records, tracing communications, and following every transaction linked to Sophie and the mysterious accounts. While waiting, I decided to revisit every conversation I'd had with Sophie over the past year. Looking back, I noticed patterns I'd ignored. Small mentions of investment opportunities, vague assurances about taking care of things, and a calm insistence that I didn't need to worry. At the time, I had trusted her, but now I saw it clearly. Her calmness had been preparation, a rehearsed shield to keep me from noticing the full scope of what she was planning. The first breakthrough came in the form of an email Lila had traced. It was subtle, just a forwarded message from Sophie to someone with initials I didn't recognize. But the content was enough to send chills down my spine. They discussed the house sale, the timing, and the transfer of funds. Sophie had written with her usual even tone, but underneath, I could almost read the hidden meaning. This was a coordinated effort, carefully staged to remove me from the equation. I sat back, overwhelmed. My own daughter, my little girl, had been a part of something I couldn't yet fully name. I wanted to cry, scream, and shake her at the same time, but I didn't. I had to be strategic. I had to let the calm simmer beneath my anger, just like Sophie had. I decided to confront her again, but this time, I needed to be prepared. Not with shouting or tears, but with questions that could expose the truth. I called her for a coffee, framing it as casual. She agreed, calm and sweet as always, though I swear I could sense her calculating every detail. We met at a small cafe near the waterfront. Sophie arrived early, sipping a latte, her posture perfect, a soft smile on her lips. I felt a pang of nostalgia. She had once been my little girl, full of curiosity and laughter. Now she was a stranger in the same body. "Mom," she said, placing a hand over mine. "I didn't mean for this to hurt you. Really." I took a deep breath. "Sophie, I need to understand. Was this your idea or someone else's? Who helped you? Who's behind this?" Her calm faltered slightly, just a flicker in her eyes, enough to tell me I was onto something. She took a slow sip of her latte, then set it down. Yes, I sold it, but I wasn't alone, she admitted softly. Finally, a crack in the calm. "Who?" I pressed. Her gaze dropped to the table. I can't say yet, but it's complicated. You don't understand the pressure I was under." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "I do understand one thing, Sophie. Someone used you. They made you think selling the house was the right choice. And now it's up to me to find out who." Her hands trembled slightly as she held her coffee. "Mom, please, don't dig too deep. It's not safe." "Safe?" I repeated, my chest tightening. Sophie, this isn't about safety anymore. This is about the life we built being stolen. I won't stop. Returning home that evening, I found Lila waiting for me. Her expression was grim. "Deepa," she said, sliding a stack of papers across the table. "You were right to act. The money didn't just go to Sophie's account. It was routed through a series of shell accounts, then split between several people. And here," she handed me another sheet. "We traced some of these funds to someone in your circle. Someone you'd trust." I stared at the names. One in particular made my heart stop. Someone I had welcomed into my home, someone who had shared meals, celebrations, laughter, was part of this scheme. "I can't believe this," I whispered. "How could they?" "They used Sophie," Lila said gently. She wasn't fully in control. They guided her. Her calmness made it easier for them to manipulate her. But she's part of the chain, whether willingly or not. I closed my eyes, imagining Ernest's face. He had always warned me about the people we trust blindly. And now it had happened. My family had been manipulated from within. Determined not to let them win, I began compiling evidence. Bank transfers, emails, texts, meeting notes, anything that could prove this wasn't a simple sale. I even returned to the beach house, trying to find any leftover clues. And then, tucked beneath the old dock, I found a small notebook, worn and water-stained. Inside, someone had detailed the plan, step by step. Names, dates, instructions on how to manipulate Sophie, how to ensure I had no say. My hands shook as I read. The calm, gentle exterior Sophie presented was just a mask. Someone else had pulled the strings. For the first time, I realized the calm had been the weapon all along. But now, the truth was my weapon, and I wasn't afraid anymore. That night, another text arrived, this time from Sophie herself. "Mom, I didn't want it to come to this. Stop now, or you'll regret it." I stared at the message. My chest was tight, my fingers shaking. She still sounded calm. But this calm was no longer soothing. It was a challenge. And I knew one thing for certain. The next move would decide everything. Welcome back to Stories Her Heart Holds. The calm you thought you knew is about to shatter. Secrets, betrayals, and truths are coming to light. By the 5th day of digging, Lila and I had uncovered enough to make me both terrified and furious. The chain of accounts, the hidden players, even Sophie's subtle hints, they all pointed to one person orchestrating everything. Someone I never would have suspected. Someone close. Someone who had learned to exploit trust like a weapon. I remember staring at the papers on my kitchen table, my hands shaking. I felt the weight of Ernest's presence in the room, as if he were whispering, "See it through, Deepa. Don't back down." And I wouldn't. Not now. Sophie called that evening, her voice unusually hesitant. "Mom, we need to talk," I sighed. "We do. And I know more than you think." There was a pause. I could almost hear her calculating. Then she said, I didn't know it would go this far. They pressured me. I thought I was protecting you." Her words made my chest tighten. Protecting me? By selling the house without asking me? By letting someone else manipulate my daughter and my family? "Sophie, I trusted you. I trusted all of you." Her voice cracked slightly. For the first time, her calm faltered. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want any of this. But the damage was done." Her calm, which had been her shield for months, had finally cracked. And now I saw the fear behind it. She wasn't cruel by choice. She was trapped in someone else's plan. That night, Lila and I arranged a meeting with a local financial auditor. We pored over the trail of transactions, contracts, and emails. Every detail confirmed our worst suspicions. The beach house sale had been orchestrated by someone with experience in manipulation and deception. And Sophie, though not entirely innocent, had been used as a pawn. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. The calmness I had feared in my daughter was a reflection of the calmness in the mastermind. Someone cold, precise, and deliberate. A week later, I confronted Sophie in person again. This time, it was at the beach, where the house had once stood. The waves lapped softly against the shore, a cruelly serene soundtrack for what I was about to say. "Sophie," I began, my voice steady but firm. "I know you weren't acting alone. Someone pushed you. Someone guided every step." Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Mom, You need to tell me everything," I said, pressing gently but unyieldingly. No calm, no rehearsed lines. Just the truth. Who's behind this? Her shoulders slumped, and finally, in a whisper, she said, It's your old friend, Laura. She said she was helping us invest wisely. I didn't know she'd manipulate everything." I swear, Laura, my longtime friend, someone I had shared decades of trust with. The thought made my stomach turn. The calm that had seemed so deliberate in Sophie had been inherited from Laura's orchestration. With this revelation, everything clicked. The calm texts, the anonymous warnings, the carefully hidden transactions, all pointed to Laura. She had used Sophie's calm nature to execute the plan flawlessly. And now, it was up to me to reclaim what had been stolen, not just the house, but my family's trust and my memories. I spent the next days preparing. Lila and I compiled every shred of evidence, ready to confront Laura and protect Sophie from further manipulation. I rehearsed my words, my tone, my stance. I would not let calmness intimidate me anymore. Finally, the confrontation came. Laura's house was quiet when I arrived, sun slanting through the blinds. I knocked, and she opened the door, smiling warmly, the same calm I had once admired in Sophie reflected in her expression. "Deepa." "What a surprise," she said, voice smooth and even. "I think you know why I'm here," I said, holding the folder of evidence tightly. "You manipulated Sophie. You sold my house. You thought your calmness could control everything, but it didn't." Her smile faltered slightly, just a flicker. "Deepa, you don't understand. I was helping. I thought I was guiding you all to a better future." "Helping?" I snapped. "By stealing memories? By betraying a family? You used your calm like a weapon. And I'm done being fooled." Her calm crumbled, replaced by panic, then fear. The power had shifted. The person who had orchestrated months of deception now faced the one they had underestimated. Sophie stood beside me, tears streaking her cheeks. "Mom, thank you for seeing the truth," she whispered. I didn't know how deep it went. I know, sweetheart," I said, wrapping an arm around her. "You're not to blame. You were used, but together, we fix this." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the beach. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of control returning. Calm, yes, but this calm was mine. Deliberate, unyielding, and prepared to reclaim everything that had been stolen. As Laura tried to protest, I handed her the folder, my voice calm but firm. "Read it carefully. Every transaction, every email, every lie, all traced back to you. And now, you face the consequences." For the first time, she realized that calm could no longer protect her, and neither could fear. Welcome back to Stories Her Heart Holds. This is the moment everything comes to light, and the calm finally belongs to the right person. After the confrontation with Laura, the tension felt almost tangible. Her face, once so confident and composed, was now a mask of panic and disbelief. The calm she had wielded like a weapon had been stripped from her by the truth, and I stood firmly beside Sophie, the daughter she had tried to manipulate, reclaiming the strength she had almost lost. I remembered Ernest's words. Truth will out. Calm can hide a lot, but it cannot stop what is real. And he had been right. We spent the next days filing formal complaints, reporting the suspicious transactions and providing every piece of evidence Lila had gathered. Each form, each statement, felt like reclaiming a small piece of the life that had been stolen. Sophie accompanied me through much of it, tearful but resolute, as she finally understood the full scope of what had happened. It was strange, seeing my daughter regain some of her old self. The calm she had once used to distance herself from me was gone, replaced with honesty, remorse, and courage. "Mom," she said one afternoon, gripping my hand, "I can't believe how blind I was. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know what else to do." I smiled, though it was heavy with relief and grief. "I know, sweetheart, and I forgive you. But now we finish this together." Laura, on the other hand, tried to maintain her composure as legal actions unfolded. She argued, manipulated, and attempted to maintain the calm that had once made her untouchable. But the mountain of evidence was undeniable. Every bank transfer, every email, every note showing her orchestration of the sale was laid bare. The calm that had allowed her to orchestrate the scheme became irrelevant. Justice has a strange way of piercing through even the most controlled exterior. Finally, weeks later, the case was resolved. The house could not be returned to me in the literal sense. It had already been transferred, but the legal system ensured Sophie was protected. Laura faced consequences, and the funds diverted were returned to a secure account for the family. Standing on the beach one evening, the sun low and orange over the water, I let myself breathe. The house was gone, but the memories remained untouchable. I felt Ernest's presence again, the salt in the wind, the soft laughter of my children echoing in my mind. And for the first time in months, I felt calm. Not the fear-driven calm that had been forced upon us, but the calm of truth and resilience. Sophie approached me, her hand in mine. "Mom, thank you for not giving up," she said softly. "You're welcome," I replied. "But remember, calm isn't always harmless. It can protect, or it can deceive. You've learned that now, haven't you?" She nodded, a small smile breaking through her tear-streaked face. "I have. And that was enough." In the end, the house, the deception, the threats, they had tested us, but they hadn't broken us. The calm that had once been a weapon in someone else's hands now belonged to us. The calm that comes from standing in truth, protecting what you love and reclaiming your life. As I walked along the shore, the waves rolling over my feet, I realized that no matter what was sold, no matter who tried to manipulate or intimidate us, the life we had built, the love, the memories, the family, was untouchable, and that is the calm worth having. Thank you for joining me on Stories Her Heart Holds. Remember, even when life feels stolen or manipulated, resilience and truth can reclaim what really matters. If you've ever faced betrayal or loss, know that calm and courage will always carry you through.